So now I want to be able to say, okay, I would like to have this person. You can use the control key to select certain peoples into the group, and you can hit apply. And now those people have access rights to the share called data. Additionally, you can add groups as well, and this allows you to add them in. And administrators. Now the force user and group, this has the capabilities of, a lot of environments have contractors or temporary workers, and you want to be able to have one forced user, and then that means he has total control. Again, I'd like to point out that many of the features in all of DSS, if you just click on this question mark right here, it provides a great detail about that particular feature and option of DSS V6. But the force user and group and user really only applies to SMB protocol for Samba and SIFs, so your Windows users will be able to see this effectively. So if I were to force a user, then I can select and say he will have total ownership. Again, when you enable the file protocols, we don't allow the usage of them until you actually set them for the share. So we don't want them to automatically to be enabled. So here you have the option to select all the file protocols that you wish to use for that particular share. Please be aware that you do have to click on the check mark and then hit apply. And for FTP usage, you can also put them in an anonymous mode and users with passwords. In this case, when you're using FTP, it's always good to, for your ADS users, that you want to make sure that if you're using FileZilla for your FTP application to connect to the FTP services that we are providing, sometimes you'll see public access where everybody's able to access the shares or the folders and files that they shouldn't. What you want to make sure is to utilize the access control list with your ADS server. So let's take a look at that, where we would want to change that. So we want to make sure we click on shares, and then from here we see our logical volume. Double click on that, and then you'll see a listing of your shares. We only want to click once, and then here we see our users and groups. If you have your groups, it sometimes is easier, or all your users, but here you have certain users you would want to test out. Let's say DHCP users. And if there is any other everyone groups, you probably want to specify those as well. Then you want to go to your access permissions. Make sure that users and groups do have those permissions and set them if they can write or read or execute, and apply to all subdirectories. Now, if again we were talking about the public access where everybody's able to see all the files and folders, make sure that the user and group, you notice how the owner currently is set by default for this. So you want to be able to take all those out and hit apply. So that way all those users and groups, normally it means everybody, doesn't have access to those permissions. So this controls for your ADS environment. So if we look at data and we go into our access permissions and groups, we can take those off as well. And then again, once again, make sure that you do set the proper access permissions for those users and groups. That pretty much explains the connection with an ADS server. And you can see how fast it works and brings in the users. You do have the ability, if you have shrink it in more users, you could see the ability, tree tools, to expand up to more than 50 elements showing the users. If we look at the specific user, let's say we take this user here, you do not have control to change his password. That is part of the ADS's responsibility. And also special permissions is also handled by the ADS server as well. Here, since I'm part of the administrator group, you could see that automatically I've been chosen to be part of the data share, so I have access to that. If you look at the user Sean, he's not part of the administrators group, thus he is not able to access that share. So please make sure that your inherited rights are properly set on the ADS server. And this will help you to be able to define which users do have access to the share. Now, you'll notice down that the information of quota is set here as well. Here, 0 means it's unlimited. So you do have up to a certain value that you can put in here. I can put myself as under, say, for Sean, 50 gig if we were to add him. Of course, we have to add the logical volume, as you see, and then this will apply him. So now you see right here the logical volume name and also the used amount that he is using and also what is available. So it's pretty simple to set up those users for which shares that they wish to have access to. Now this also applies to groups as well. If we look at the DCP administrators, here that they have access to the share called data. And of course then we can put a place of quota on the share for the actually for the logical volume for that group, and similar to what we did with the user of Sean. So let's place 50 megabytes for that quota. And here you can see the logical volume, the max space, the free used, and of course space left. You can also set the quota definitions. Only users whose group is primary, only users whose quota is not set. And of course you can set those values as well. So pretty much that is the simplicity of using the DSS V6 with connecting to your ADS server. Sometimes it's helpful when we get into reviewing logs to find out a little bit more information about the settings for an ADS. You can go right into status hardware and then scroll all the way down to the log section. And here we are doing another webinar presentation of how to understand logs and review them. And this takes a while to download the logs because you have to remember there's compressing hundreds and hundreds of files that contain information. But it's probably a little bit more advanced in this webinar, but for some of you it might be good to know, how do I obtain logs? How do I know I'm actually connected, and how can I verify? So we'll give this a minute or two to go ahead and compile these files, and then we'll look at them. Again, you do have a logs viewer that you can view here. So if you look at Samba, you can see ADS logs right there, which is similar to what we're going to be looking at right now. So let's see what we can view up here. Give me 1 second. We'll look at the application. All right. So now we are looking at the version of DSS logs. There's a lot of information, even just on the basis point. You can look at we'll go right into the Samba directory right here. And here's the ADS log. So there's a lot of information where you can find out the connection. You can see the Kerberos server. You can see where we're able to see the DSS admin server. Default domain. Is there net ADS info? So this tells us the Windows 2003. This is the server name. This is the realm name. OE.local. And here you have the binding path. And you can see the local port that we're using. So I do want to make a point that a lot of times we get questions where if the ADS server is not on the same subnet, you can have issues. So what you want to make sure is that you do have your static route set, that you're not pulling in different subnets to make it difficult. We're not able to traverse that that port number. And so you won't be able to connect. So make sure that you have your proper static routing. So here you can see it says yes, Active Directory, primary, yes, and those. So this helps you identify are you connecting and how is it connecting. And there's a lot of other deeper logs that you can go right into, but those are pretty much the basic ones. As you can see that the logs are very in-depth, and if you have issues, we always recommend that when you submit a support ticket that you send logs, updated logs from your DSS V6, and this helps us help you. And any information that you can that is related to your connection issues. You can also see the type of encryptions that we're negotiating with for the Kerberos. And here you can see that we picked up on the ADS server being 0.8 at the last octet. So that's the importance of being able to have logs and being able to view the information. Again, you can go here into Logs Viewer and pull up this information as well. And Notepad or WordPad is probably better to be able to format the word wrapping. You know, there's a lot of things that you probably want to take advantage of with the ADS and the DSS V6, because in the configuration, if we go back into the NAS settings, you may not need all of these users in there. If you notice that we have the RALIS, that's for backup exec, that we want to give full access to, because we want a backup exec to be able to back up the files from the ADS server. Now, if we clear out, as we talked about before, and we'll try to relog back on, so any updates, if let's say there was an update with new users, but you didn't really want them in, but you need to remove them, but you need to remove them fairly quickly, then you can use the erase TBD, and that'll flush out the users that you added that you really didn't want to add. Or you can wait until after 15 minutes that the users will be flushed out.